everyone, this is Daughter Darkness, and today we've got the 5th Kingdom Hearts game retrospective, and we're looking at the prequel to the series, set about 10 years before Kingdom Hearts 1. This is, of course, Birth by Sleep, which is a game that I came to way later than most people, but I mean, we'll get onto that in a few minutes. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep was released in January 2010 in Japan, and September of the same year in the rest of the world. It then received the final mix version in January of 2011, and that version was then remastered as part of the 2.5 collection on PS3, before being re-released again on the 1.5 plus 2.5 collection on PS4 in 2017. So, with Nomura wanting to focus on the Kingdom Hearts backstory, while the main Kingdom Hearts team were busy with Versus 13 plus the 25 other things that Square Enix wanted them to do at the same time, he commissioned the so-called Osaka team to make a prequel to the series, a game about the origins of Xehanort, that would allow the original form of him to be used as an antagonist in future games, i.e. Kingdom Hearts 3. And development of the game actually began really early, before even Kingdom Hearts 2 released. It was originally going to be on the PS2, and there was some testing with Sora being the playable character in the game. I'm not sure how that would have worked with it being a prequel, but it was shortly halted anyway, so this team could go and develop Rechained of Memories, which would release alongside Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. But by the time that was done, the PS2 was starting to fade into obscurity. The PS3 was out, the Wii was out, the Xbox 360 was out. The PS2's time was mostly gone. So it was eventually decided that they would use the PSP, which had a much greater online functionality than the PS2 did, but also wouldn't require the intense development a PS3 game would, as Nomura was quite obviously aware of at this point. The secret movie for Kingdom Hearts 2 was literally called Birth by Sleep and is very much a scene from this game in CG as opposed to in-game cutscenes. And the title, apparently one of the main reasons was just that Nomura looked at English titles and saw that while the and of were used quite a lot, by was very rarely used, so he just wanted something with by in, so fine, I guess. And the idea was for it to give a little bit of background to things from Kingdom Hearts 1 specifically, things like Maleficent, how she came into contact with Xehanort and started a search for the Princesses of Heart, plus the Princesses of Heart themselves and their worlds and all that kind of stuff. And the game was announced at TGS 2007 alongside 358 Days Over 2 and Kingdom Hearts Coded. It received a lot more marketing worldwide than either of these and was effectively labelled as Kingdom Hearts 0, and was considered, at least from a story standpoint, as on the same level as Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2. However, despite that, I didn't play the game when it released. I was aware of its existence. One of my friends had a PSP and he played it and he seemed to like it, but Days had just left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, so I wasn't really desperate to go out and get it because of that. It wasn't until 2.5 released at the end of 2014 that I actually got around to playing it. And I played Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix first, so that was early 2015. And I think the gap might have had a negative effect, because I remember playing it and I was wondering what all the fuss was about. Because the thing is, at that point, Birth by Sleep was kind of talked about as like this perfect game. Like it was as good as, if not better than Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, that it was just so perfectly designed and everything was wonderful about it. And then I played it and I'm like, no. I didn't really know at that point about like floatiness and unbalanced gameplay and that kind of stuff, but something always felt a little bit off. I certainly enjoyed it, but everything just didn't really work for me. The combat, the presentation, I really don't like the way, even to this day, that the story is completely carved up into 3 chunks. And of course this game is far from perfect, as it seems like people came to a realization of after 2.5 released. Of course, I did pretty much know the broad strokes of the story before I went in, so that probably didn't help, but I did enjoy the story more than the game, and my position hasn't really changed. My understanding of Birth by Sleep has, developed, and I know a lot more about it and where the flaws are and that kind of thing, but I still just think it's a good but flawed game. And that is an important thing to get out here, because when I'm talking about the game itself, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to sound quite negative, but it is a good game. It just has some major issues that get in the way of it being any more than that. It's the first game to use the command X system, and probably the worst use of it in my opinion. You can't like chain combos with commands or anything. It's very much you stop your combo and then have to like get on the ground and do the command separately. There's no like fluidity or anything to it. Then there's things like command styles and stuff, which are kind of hammered home as being based on what your commands do, but they don't really seem to affect what they do much. And as is the nature of the command deck, and is the case in certainly this and Dream Drop Distance, to a lesser extent recoded, but it lends itself to the player becoming extremely overpowered, particularly when it's exaggerated by command melding. Because through command melding, especially if you have a guide, you can get like endgame abilities in the first couple of worlds. With a little bit of grinding, you can have Firaga, Blizzaga, Thundaga, Curaga before you even get to the first Radiant Garden visit. And on top of that, if you're lucky with using the right crystals, or if you use a guide, you can get second chance once more and Leaf Bracer then as well. And the thing is that they did try to balance it, but it's balancing it in a bad way. Yes, you can get impossibly good abilities, but you don't know what you're getting unless you use a guide, because you're just adding two together and putting them blindly there. And some of them are obvious. If you put two fires together, you get Fire, but other ones aren't quite so obvious. And there, you're just kind of putting two things together and hoping it works. I don't really like that kind of trial and error nature of the progression system. And I don't like the fact that Birth by Sleep's the only Kingdom Hearts game where I have to sit there with like my phone on a screen with command melding guide every time I play it. It kind of gets a bit irritating. And Birth by Sleep is a strange thing really there, where everything you have is absolutely broken and overpowered. I've mentioned the command deck, and you have a handful of commands like the Surges and Mind Square and that kind of stuff that are just ridiculous. On top of that, you've got shot locks, which can devastate even the strongest of enemies, D-links, which when you build to their finishes can be absolutely ridiculous. Even like the dodges for two of the three characters are infinite and invincible, which I mean is kind of necessary in one of the bosses, and then command styles are there. Speaking of the bosses, these are always a battle of who is the most broken. They all attack relentlessly and don't really react to what you do to them. Something like Mysterious Figure is a contender for the worst designed boss in a game. I'd possibly say that Ruler of the Sky from Days maybe is just a bit worse, because in Days that boss is broken but you aren't, whereas in this one at least you're broken too. So that stuff really just doesn't work for me. It can offer a bit of fun, but it just lacks the depth of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. And Dream Drop Distance uses a similar system, and a lot of the mini review for that one is going to be kind of a direct comparison here, why even though I think it has a lot of the same problems, Dream Drop Distance works for me a little bit better. The story does offer a lot of highlights. I think Terra's story is the best. I know he tends to be the one that everyone loves to hate, but I think Terra is the best well-written character in Birth by Sleep, of the main characters at least. I mean, Xehanort's great and Vanitas is great. Ventus and Aqua are a little bit boring by comparison, honestly. Aqua I like a lot more in 0.2, Ven is just kind of a whiny kid. The friendship between the three characters also is never really convincing, and I think that's the problem, is that the game's really trying to sell you on that, but they spend like 2 scenes together in the whole film and they always feel a little bit awkward. However, Ericus is an interesting character, is like the polar opposite of Xehanort. Both the villains are really good. All 3 if you count Braig, and you do get a lot of like I see moments from when things kind of link together to the wider Kingdom Hearts story, and this culminates in Blank Points, which is certainly a contender for the best scene in the entire series. So the story I think as a whole works, but the way it's carved up and the way that the characters are written and stuff for the most part just makes it not really as good an experience for me as say the first 3 Kingdom Hearts games. So this has ended up a bit shorter than anything. It's kind of hard to make everything is broken like a long running review, but yeah, it's a game with a lot of issues, but it's mostly a good time. It's made a positive impact on the series in terms of story. It's introduced a lot of characters and that kind of thing that are going to be important later on, and that's all nice. Even if the command deck system was sort of dominated the Kingdom Hearts series from this point on, and always with a negative effect, I think. And it's also important as being the first new Kingdom Hearts game co-directed by Tai Yasue, and developed by the team that's the bulk of the development for Kingdom Hearts 3, so it's important as far as that goes. So, Birth by Sleep, what do you think of it? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below the video, and while you're down there, please like this video if you did, and if you liked it, then check out my other videos, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you for watching.